were prudent because of the COVID-19 pandemic and the related peacetime emergency declaration made by Governor Walz in accordance with Minnesota Statutes Chapter 12. We have ensured that all members of the body participating in the meeting, wherever their physical location, can hear one another and can hear all discussion and testimony offered at today's meeting. We have also ensured that members of the public present at the regular meeting location of the body can hear all discussion and testimony and all votes of the members of the body. We have urged the public not to attend this meeting in person because of the COVID-19 pandemic and have ensured that members of the public can view and monitor the meeting remotely in real time by broadcasting the meeting on the Cook County website. All votes will be conducted by roll call, so each member's vote on each issue will be identified and recorded. Having said that, we'll begin our Planning Commission meeting, and as I just stated, we will do a roll call for each vote that we take in Planning Commission or the Board of Adjustment this evening. And I'll just begin right now by taking a roll of the commissioners that are present. Adam Trefel?
Present. Yes, I'm here.
Yep, thank you. Jerry Hinneker?
Present.
Thank you. Judy Machenbacher?
Present.
Thank you. Charlie Laboda?
Here.
Thank you, Charlie. Greg Mueller?
Here.
Schlut. John Schlut?
Present.
Thank you, John. Okay, we are all present, and I'm Don Fair, and I'm also obviously here. So our first, do we have some background? We have background on our agenda. I don't think I think I just covered that, huh?
Yeah, you have to do the minutes.
Yeah, we'll get to that next, the first item was really just that background review that I read. Our second item is the adopt the agenda and approve minutes from the Planning Commission of April 22nd, 2020. If you've had a chance to review those minutes, I would be open to a motion.
John Float, so move.
Thank you, John. We have a motion from John on the minutes and the agenda.
Jerry Hinneker, second.
Thank you, Jerry. So we have a first and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of adopting the agenda and approving the minutes? We'll go run through the list again. Adam?
Aye.
Jerry? I think Jerry made the second there. Jerry, are you still there?
What's that?
You're going to vote for the minutes? We're voting to adopt the minutes. You made the second, I believe, to adopt the minutes and the agenda?
Yes, sir.
All right. And
yeah, I'm voting for it.
Yes. Thought you were. Judy?
Aye.
Thank you. Charlie?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
And I'm an aye also. So that motion passes. Our next item is old business. The item is the Day Logan dates of operation. And Bill, do you want to address that? Or you want me to just
Yes,
take it?
Mr. Chair.
Okay.
As old business, this was originally heard by the Planning Commission on March 13th. Was subsequently put to the Board of Commissioners. There was some discussion and debate regarding dates of operation. The Board of Commissioners remanded this back to the Planning Commission to identify dates and have a discussion thereof. Those dates were identified as July 31st, August 2nd, August 21st to the 23rd, August 28th to the 30th, September 4th to the 6th, September 11th to the 13th, and September 18th to the 20th. So the discussion that will ensue does have guidance, and I would defer to Director Nelson to give you those parameters, so we have a discussion based on the merits of the request rather than have a far-reaching discussion that is in no one's interest. So if Director Nelson could chime in, I would appreciate that.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lane. I don't have a whole lot to to add other than what Bill said, other than the fact that the commissioners did have a pretty well-rounded discussion on the issue, the application in its full. And I would expect that there probably is going to be more discussion at the next commissioners meeting with regards to that. But when it was remanded back to the Planning Commission, the ideal was to keep the discussion strictly in the confines of the date, the change of date, as opposed to any of the other merits or elements or items of the request, but just to keep it the focus on the dates and make any recommendations to that back to the Board of Commissioners, and they will have the rest of their discussion at their next meeting. Over.
Thank you, Tim. With that, I will just remind the commissioners that we did hold the public hearing on this matter and did vote upon it. So there's no additional public hearing at this time, no input from the public, but conversation or discussion amongst the commissioners to approve these dates, or if we have to institute any change to them. So I would entertain any discussion from commissioners.
Are these new dates because of taking COVID into account? Is that the reason?
Do we have an answer to that, do you believe?
I'm not sure. I believe it had an influence.
Yeah.
Well, and I can chime into that, Mr. Chair. That was one of the influences in there in terms of the deliberations from the commissioners. We do have Commissioner Dukirk is also online, so she could respond from the commissioner's side of things. But that was part of the concerns. Is I know that the commissioners were taking and tabling some of the large activity permits that were going, and so that part of the concern was the date of operation and the fact that there was some interest in pushing it further into the fall is what got it remanded back towards the Planning Commission. Over.
Thank you, Tim. So, Commissioner Miller, we don't have a firm answer there, but obviously dates have been pushed back, and as they noted in their correspondence, that they are committed to full compliance of what's happening in the county as far as these are concerned. So anything they do will be under the rules of the county and the state as far as this COVID is concerned.
All right, that helps. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I guess the question, folks, is do we want to, these are the dates that they are asking for. Do we have issues with that? Or personally, I think, they pushed off of the first holiday and the 4th of July, and a lot of the summer is wide open, and they're pushed more into the fall. I think I did hear in the past some issues about the whole summer being taken up. So I don't know if that helps or not, but we just need
Can I ask what big permits the county has denied? Is Fisherman Picnic canceled? What are they doing as far as these events? They aren't fair.
just can't. Yeah. My understanding.
Heidi, I can answer those questions.
Yes, please, Commissioner.
Okay, Judy, most of the events have actually pulled their permits before they go in for approval. There have been some on the county board agendas that have been pulled right before we've held our meeting. We have one permit, I believe, for a bike race that we tabled until May, and we have not reviewed that one yet. Fisherman's Picnic has been canceled, but not canceled at the authority of the county board. So a lot of this is the event people are making the decisions themselves, and the board itself has not had to specifically, if I recall, deny anything. I am also the commissioner that made the motion to send this back to you. And the reason I made that motion to send it back to you is because when Jay Logan came before the county board, they started discussing change of dates. And the county board doesn't have the ability to change the dates. That's under your review. And so without getting into discussions between them and the county board, I am the one that made the motion to send it back to you. And their discussion with the county board was that they are very willing and very adjustable to the COVID. So I know this is a tough position for you because the first date isn't until July 31st, which, as you know, Fisherman's Picnic has been canceled, so it's not a combination. But that is why we sent it back, was almost entirely because of the COVID. There may be other discussions with the board if you send it back to us, but that was the main concern, was the dates and what's going on with COVID. Over.
Thank you, Heidi. Other thoughts or questions?
Well, I don't know where, I'm not comfortable with the planning commission saying, yes, it's okay, and I will vote just no on change of dates, and maybe maybe they'll cancel it on their own. I think it's a bad idea to bring groups of people into our county, and I mean, in other times it's maybe a good idea, but this is a bad idea.
Other comments or thoughts?
This is John Float, and I do have some concerns too. I mean, they're now asking for 5 straight weekends in a row, which is a pretty steep amount for the neighbors to have to endure. That they've, starting August 21st through the 20th of September, every single weekend is taken. And that's a concern of mine, especially when you're pushing 25 people plus when instructors, that'd be 27, into a garage setting, I believe is what we saw, a small area. And I'd rather see the original dates adhered to in the movement to this. So I'm probably going to be a no on this too.
Thank you, John. Any other thoughts or comments, commissioners?
Well, I'm a little confused here. I mean, we've already discussed and given a decision on whether or not these events can take place. That's not an issue. The neighbors, we addressed them. The issue is, apparently, as I understand it, the situation with COVID-19. Is that correct?
This is John Schlote, not with me, not so much other than they're going to be taxed.
I'm asking if that's why it is being brought back to us.
Oh, I see.
That is correct. That is correct from Commissioner Dukirk. It was sent back because of the dates and the uncertainty of COVID-19.
Okay. And at this point in time, especially with the governor making an address tonight regarding upcoming times, I don't have enough information to make any determinations on this myself. The group itself may want to consider on its own and make its own decision first. But I'm not ready to go out and make any changes with the scant information I have at this point in time.
Thank you, Jerry. Other thoughts or questions?
This is Commissioner Laboda. I'm inclined to not really have an issue with the change in date. My concern, or not concern, but just real comment is that as long as they would meet the Minnesota Department of Health and the CDC guidelines for gathering of whatever's in effect on those dates, which may put additional limitations on numbers of people, but I'm inclined to not have an issue with changing the dates, provided they're meeting those public health guidelines on those dates. Over.
Thank you, Charlie. Anyone else? Commissioners?
Let me just amend my own. This is Jerry again.
Sure.
I agree completely with Charlie. I think that he has described it quite well. Thank you.
Okay, I'll jump in here myself. I think I agree with Jerry and with Charlie in that I'm not comfortable making any decisions regarding events with or without COVID, especially out in the July 31st. I can't tell you what's going to happen then. I don't know who can. If it's approved and the events happen, they have to follow the rules of the county and the state. And they will determine who can come and who can't. That's where I fall on it. I was not in support of the original permit. It passed. And now we're just talking about these days. I understand John's concern that they're all grouped up at the end. Before there was a concern, they were kind of grouped up in the middle, so I don't know. I can't deal with that part, but I can support this. Other thoughts are? Hearing none, are we ready to move on this?
Yeah, this is Greg. I mean, yeah, I agree. This is a state decision on gathering
That's what it is.
people. That's all right.
That's the question we're being asked, is to approve dates or not. That's it. We're not the medical authorities. I'm not sure that, yeah, so.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Tim Nelson.
Yes, sir.
That could be the way that you would frame the recommendation, since, the Board of Commissioners is looking for some type of recommendation on the dates, that the recommendation coming from here, since, as you had mentioned, this had already passed out of the Planning Commission for the overall event itself. But you could make the recommendation to accept the dates, provided that they would be maintained in compliance with the county, state, and CDC guidelines.
Yes, thank you, Tim. And that is what the document I have in front of me, under our old business, we are saying this is, of course, this is all dependent on the social distancing orders with Cook County, and we are committed to full compliance of what is in place at the time of these gatherings. That's a statement from these ladies, so.
This is Judy, and
Yes.
I have some concern about the neighboring properties. They may have made schedules based on what the previous schedule was, and maybe have family events planned without the gathering. Have they been notified? Do they not have an opinion in this?
Commissioner Machenbacher.
This impacts maybe family reunions and gatherings.
Yeah, Commissioner Machenbacher, yes, they have been notified. We have been in contact with them. They also understand the parameters of this meeting, which is to discuss dates and not the other concerns. They will have an opportunity at the next Board of Commissioners meeting at the public comment period to add further input.
All right.
I would entertain a motion from someone if you might have one.
Commissioner Lavola, I would make a motion to approve the date, dependent on the health guidelines at the time of the date.
Thank you, Charlie. We have a motion to accept these dates with I think, Charlie, you had that compliance, that they're going to comply with the state and county rules in there. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, correct. Okay, we have that motion. Do we have a second?
This is Commissioner Triefel. I second it with as long as they're compliant to the state guidelines as well, as Commissioner Loboda stated.
Very good, thank you. So we have a motion and a second to accept these dates and move this matter forward to the commissioners, county commissioners again. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, then I will call a roll call vote on this item. Adam Triefel?
I approve it.
Thank you. Jerry Henniker?
All right.
Judy Machenbacher?
Nay.
Charlie Laboda?
Aye.
Greg Mueller?
Aye.
John Schlutt?
Nay.
And I will vote in favor of this as well, so we have a vote of 5-2 to move this forward. Thank you. Now, moving from old business to new business, we have one item here. Jeff Latz has a request to change zoning on 2 parcels. One parcel from light business development area to Lutzen Town Center General Commercial, and one parcel from Lutzen Town General Center to the LBDA designation. Legal description is part of the northeast quarter of the southeast quarter and government lot 3, section 26, township 60 north, range 3 west. PIDs 27-126-2405 and 27-126-3400. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case 2020-1ZC. Hopefully you read some of the excerpts that I provided regarding the Lutzen Town Center Plan and the Land Use Guide Plan. These properties have had a relatively active relationship with the Cook County zoning ordinance over the past 30 years. There was a mid-90s effort to establish low-income housing, a 2003 attempt to rezone from FAR 3 to general commercial, the 2004 implementation of the Lutzen Town Center Plan, and finally, a 2011 administrative subdivision and rezone from FAR 3 to LBDA for the northernmost parcel. The current effort is intended to modify several components of that 2011 administrative subdivision and rezone, largely by establishing property and zoning overlays based on natural boundaries and established travel corridors. Should this rezoning action be approved, the applicant will subsequently engage in a property line reconfiguration for each of his 3 parcels. 2 rezonings are proposed. The first, a change from Lutzen Town General Commercial to Lutzen Business Development, will involve 3,115 square feet or 0.07 acres. The second, a change from LBDA to LTGC, will include 27,513 square feet or 0.63 acres. Amendments to the zone district map as described in section 4.02 of this ordinance shall include an evaluation of the following considerations. And these parameters are followed for each rezoning that you experience. A, is the proposed zoning consistent with the comprehensive plan or land use plan adopted by the county? From the land use guide plan, rezoning of land must consider the existing quantity of land available at the appropriate locations and at that time for a given purpose. That's land use, general land use from the 2016 land use guide plan. The next is up-to-date economic, natural resource use, and population information should be used to adjust the amount and location of individual land use zoning designations to provide a variety of living and working situations. Review of conditional uses or rezoning must evaluate impacts on, but not limited to, relationship to land use plans, benefit to the overall community, adjacent use, air and water quality, traffic generation, public safety and health, area aesthetics, and economic impact on the area. Redevelopment of already developed lands is generally preferred over the development of undeveloped land. Areas designated primarily for residential use should be located so as to be free of any detrimental effects from commercial or industrial uses. With those examples in mind, Land Services' response is as follows. The LAT's request does not represent a significant reconfiguration of the Lutzen Town Center zoning landscape. Instead, it is intended to adjust property lines and associated zoning overlays to reflect natural features and/or infrastructure. These actions are supported by the LUGP and will support diversified zoning near population centers within the county. Item B, has a mistake been made in the original zoning which was inconsistent with the comprehensive or land use plan, which should now be corrected along with the zoning, or have substantial changes occurred in the community since the adoption of the comprehensive or land use plan, which should result in the plan and the zoning being amended. Land Services response: given that the zoning mosaic of Lutzen Town Center has been adjusted by both the township and the county, adjustment is a more appropriate description as opposed to a mistake. This action represents an appropriate and reasonable adjustment of individual properties and community zoning. Item C, does there exist a clear public need for the benefit from additional zoning of the type proposed, which shall be above and beyond any benefit or convenience to the landowner? Land Services response: this zoning adjustment will not have an adverse effect on the intent or layout of Lutzen Town Center zoning. Item D, beyond a public need being evident, is there a showing that the public interest would be best served by rezoning the property in question rather than other property in the community? Land Services response: this modifies existing zoning boundaries without disrupting adjacent properties. This is a reasonable action by the property owner. And finally, E, in the case of downzoning, which is a changing a zone district from a higher, more intensive use to a lower or less intensive use, does the proposed zoning allow the property owner a reasonable use of the property under the terms of this ordinance, as well as serve the public interest? Our response: this does not involve downzoning. Finally, the establishment of zoning based on natural and/or property boundaries is a practical approach that is not consistently applied throughout Cook County. Instead, zoning is based on a linear concept, for example, 300 feet for lakeshore residential layers. As a result, many parcels display multiple zoning overlays without deference to the singularity of property ownership. The actions of Mr. Latz will establish a more pragmatic parcel and zoning layer for his Lutzen properties, and will do so without disrupting adjacent properties or even Lutzen Town Center itself. We sent out 57 letters of notification and received 1 phone inquiry from Gene Lynch, who voiced neither support nor opposition for the Latz request. And I might add that at our insistence, Mr. Latz did bring this item up to the Lutzen Township Board for review and familiarity. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Is someone representing as Jeff or someone representing Jeff available?
Yes, this is Jeff Ladd.
Hello, Jeff. Do you have anything to add to what Bill has said?
No, I think that was, that and my narrative, I hope, were self-explanatory, and I will just defer to the commissioners if you have any specific questions that I'll try to answer.
Very good, thank you. And this is a public hearing, so now is an appropriate time for anyone in the public who is listening to address this. If anyone wants to address this item, now is your opportunity. Any public comments on the Latz request for rezoning? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this meeting, and I'll turn to the commissioners for their comments or questions. Go ahead, and I'll just open it for you to go ahead, commissioners, as you like. Just state your name and tell us what you think.
This is John Schlote, and I've examined this proposal and looked over all of the blueprints and maps, and I think it's reasonable and practical what his ideas are, and I'm going to support it.
Okay, thank you, John. Anyone else?
Judy Montemar.
Go ahead, Judy.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Why don't you go, Judy?
I'm very familiar with the property and how it's laid out and the town plan, and it fits nicely. There was talk when the town plan was made to bring commercial development in off from the highway so that there's the town center. And this supports that. Rather than everything being lined up on the highway, take some inroads. And there's another commercial property where the trailer court is that could play a key component down the road to make this all work really well. And Jeff, as I've known him for years, and he's done a really fine job of developing. and I will support it.
Very good, thank you.
This is Greg Mueller, and I kind of echo what Judy just said, and that Jeff is pretty vigilant about making things happen in downtown Lisbon, and his adjustments make a lot of sense. I was just curious what the township said, or had an opinion, or did they have to vote or anything? You said the township was contacted?
Jeff?
I sent them, this is Jeff.
Yes,
I
Jeff.
sent them a narrative because we were in this COVID separation
Oh, right.
situation. So I just got a little feedback. I think it was just more trying to fully understand where it was, but it, in relationship to the whole property. So I clarified that with one of the town board supervisors, and she told me there was no other comment about it.
Thanks.
Other thoughts, comments?
This is Jerry Hacker. I love logical proposals that solve problems, and this looks like a logical proposal that solves a number of problems. And nobody seems to have any objections. I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, hearing none, I am going to then ask if someone has, I will just add my thoughts. I'm familiar with the property as well, and today I went back and walked it to look at these little pieces, and it just makes absolute sense with how the ground lies, where the brick runs through, and pieces are cut off. He's putting them, attaching them to the proper pieces in my mind, so I also will support it. Anyone else have any comments or want to make a motion?
This is Jerry Hacker. I would make a motion that we approve the proposal as stated and recommended.
Thank you, Jerry. Greg, you seconded?
Greg Mueller, second.
Very good, thank you. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this rezoning request on the table. Anyone else have any comments or questions? Further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a motion.
Yeah.
Roll call.
Oh, yeah. We got a motion, don't we? Excuse me, I'm behind. I'm looking at the crowd, and I can't see what your faces are looking like here. Yeah, I guess it's time for a vote. Adam, you're in favor?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
And Judy?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
Greg?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
And I support it as well, so we have a unanimous vote. That will be sent forward to the county board then for their approval. Thank you, thanks, Jeff.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to our, I guess we're going to, not moving along to anything, we're going to close the Planning Commission. Yes, I have a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I so moved.
All right, we got a motion by Judy, second by Jerry, was that?
Yep.
All in favor? Adam?
Aye.
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
And John?
Aye.
And I will vote aye as well. I didn't think anybody would vote no to adjourning, so that's good. All right, now we're going to open our Board of Adjustment for Wednesday, May 13th. And again, I'm not going to read that sheet again, I don't think. I think we had that covered. The first item then on here is to call the meeting to order. We'll adopt the Board of Adjustment agenda for today and the minutes of April 22nd. If you've had a chance to review the minutes, I would be open to a motion to accept the minutes and the agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chair, Mr. Henniker.
Jerry Henniker moved it, and I have a second?
Yes, second, Charlie, the vote.
Charlie, a second, thank you. Okay, Adam,
I approve.
yeah, Jerry? Yes.
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
And Greg? Greg's,
Not on the Board of Adjustment.
well, okay, then I won't ask him, will I? I'm sorry, no, Greg and John won't be on these next couple of questions. All right, thank you. Then we have 5 ayes, I'm an aye as well, so we'll move forward in the, well, we have an old business to deal with, is the Hedstrom Noble modification of condition 5 of their variance that we granted, I believe it was last July. And here comes Bill, just coming back in a moment, we'll read this off for you. They, if you recall, we did a variance request, they were going to rebuild the home and, for their mother, and she has since passed away, and so they have some changes to it at this point. Bill's going to give us the...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This was from an original Board of Adjustment hearing on July 10th, 2019. This is shortly after Thelma Hedstrom passed, and the family had initially intended to rebuild for her. They had a fire that destroyed the house, I believe, in 2018. And in the process of applying for a variance, there was some confusion amongst family members regarding the building plan itself for reconstruction. So that variance was approved. The parameters of the variance were effectively that it be built, the new structure be built no closer than 47 feet from the ordinary high water elevation. The sauna, which was there originally, was allowed to be reconstructed as well. That was within the 10-foot side lot setback. And what's happened since then is that there's been some more family discussion, and the Hedstroms have come up with a new plan which effectively removes the original construction, which was identified in condition 5 of that variance. And what they want to do is have a different configuration of construction, still at 47 feet from the ordinary high water elevation, along with removal of the sauna within the side lot setback. So talked with Director Nelson, and we've had other consultations, and what we felt was because the new construction will retain that 47-foot setback, that any configuration beyond that is not problematic to resource or property line setbacks. So what has effectively happened is that the Hedstroms are asking to retain that 47-foot ordinary high water elevation construction allowance, and to reconfigure the dynamic, the dimensions and that sort of thing for proposed residential construction. This also removes the sauna from within the 10-foot side lot setback. And based on all the information, based on the resource protection, we are of the opinion that this is not problematic to the variance, and we support this as a different direction for the Hedstrom family, mindful that all permits and everything else must still be applied for and approved, and accordingly it's not a problematic to the variance process itself.
Thank you, Bill. Is, this is old business.
Linda.
Huh?
Linda Hedstrom?
Linda, yeah. This is old business, but it's a change. We can open it for this, I believe.
Yes.
We're going to have a hearing here, yes. Okay. Is Ms. Hedstrom available? Someone here from the Hedstrom family to discuss this? Anyone from the Hedstrom family to discuss this matter? Well, I guess we'll move on. Anyone from the public that wishes to speak to this matter, to this item? Now would be your opportunity. Anyone from the public, please feel free. Okay, hearing none there, then I am going to close the public hearing and turn to the commissioners for discussion. Go ahead, commissioners. Anyone?
This is Judy,
Yes.
and I will support the variance request adjustment.
Very good, thank you, Judy. Any other comments? I will say that I've visited this property a couple times in the last year, and I also will support this. It makes sense, and so I have no issues. Any other comments, or would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that we support the change in the variance.
Very good, thank you. Any?
I'll second that, this is Gary.
All right, we have a motion by Judy and a second by Jerry to approve this variance modification of condition 5 of the variance 2019-11B. Any other discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call for a vote. Adam?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye. Over.
And Judy?
Aye.
And Charlie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that's passed with a unanimous vote. Thank you. Moving on to our next item, new business, is Robert Pacola, request for a variance from tank sizing requirements to install pressurized water delivery in a cabin on property adjacent to the Sugarloaf Road. Legal description is south 1/2 of the southwest 1/4 of the northwest 1/4 of Section 20, Township 58 North, Range 5 West. PID is 20-220-2450. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case 2020-10V. The Parcel parcel includes 20 acres and was purchased in 2004. Property is located within the Forest Agriculture Recreational or FAR 1 Zone District, and it is accessed from Sugarloaf Road and supports approximately 1,250 feet of frontage on Sugarloaf Creek. Considerations: the applicant has owned this property since 2004. The parcel exhibits pronounced topography with a 180-foot elevation gain from its south to north boundary. Approximately 1,250 feet of Sugarloaf Creek frontage is contained within the parcel. Bluff features are a component of the Pacola landscape. During the course of ownership, Mr. Pacola has established an environmentally conservative and aesthetic residential footprint. A primary and secondary cabin and a sauna are in place, and as described, are used sporadically during the year. A 2014 after-the-fact action by then Planning and Zoning resulted in the relocation of several of the structures to meet ordinance-defined setbacks. This request is simple in function. Mr. Pacola will be installing pressurized water delivery for a proposed bathhouse with derivative gray water collected into a holding tank. However, Minnesota Rule 7080 in the Cook County Septic Ordinance, Section 4.03, require a minimum holding tank capacity of at least 1,000 gallons. Mr. Pacola seeks variance approval to install a 500-gallon holding tank. The expected burdens of a smaller capacity holding tank, especially in light of pressurized water delivery, are a greater frequency of pumping and maintenance, and also limited ability to incorporate the smaller tank into any future property or building expansion. Mr. Pacola has acknowledged these as property variables. Given tacit approval of the septic design by the Cook County Environmental Health Inspector, the installation of a 500-gallon holding tank would seem a reasonable request and is reflective of the otherwise rustic and aesthetically driven Pacola property. If approved, the following conditions may be applied to this variance. 1, all components of septic installation, including design, installation, and permitting, shall comply with Minnesota Rule 7080 and the Cook County Septic Ordinance. And 2, an operations and maintenance plan shall be developed by the property owner and submitted to the Cook County Environmental Health Inspector. We sent out 13 letters of notification and received no comments.
Thank you, Bill. Is Mr. Packel or someone representing him available online? Anyone there to represent this property, the Packel property? Well, hearing none, I will then open it to the public. If anyone from the public has comments or concerns regarding the Packel request, now is your opportunity. Anyone with comments or concerns regarding this Packel request? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to then close the public hearing and turn once again to the commissioners for any comments or concerns you have about this property. I'll just start myself and tell you that, I visited it yesterday, and if some of you have been there in the past, I know this came before us in the past for other issues, but it's an interesting property sitting on up on the cliff. And they use it pretty well, it appears like. We have some very little small cabins, and they're going to use the gray water tank, a 500-gallon instead of a 1,000-gallon. And if you see there are notes in the file by staff about the issues, that may be an issue for them if they decide to put in a septic system, but they're aware of that and they're accepting it on their own. So that's my thoughts. Anybody else? Any other comments? Judy?
This is Judy, and the one question I have, I've been under the impression that the county can be more stringent than the state, but not more liberal. And if it's a state regulation that it has to be a 1,000-gallon tank, how is it possible for the county to allow a 500-gallon?
Commissioner Maschenbacher, that precisely describes the variance process. Over the last couple of years, with the implementation of the Cook County septic ordinance and frequent contacts with Cook County, with the MPCA and that sort of thing, there has been a relaxation somewhat of the strictest interpretation of Minnesota Rule 7080. And in this case, this is a reasonable request based on the environmental health inspector's opinion. The primary concern that he had, and that was Mitch Everson, is that, as was identified in the narrative, that the burden for expansion is going to be solely with the property owner. So it's in their interest that they size according to use, and if that use exceeds the size, then they're going to have to accommodate that in the future.
Will it be strictly gray water, or will it be sewage as well?
Yes, no, it's gray water.
Yeah, the permit does ask for a gray water permit, yes.
Okay.
Or, excuse me, the variance states gray water. Other thoughts? Questions? If not, go ahead.
This is Jerry. I find no problem with any of it. And it's my understanding that the county really has the ultimate responsibility towards the resource. That the state gives us some guideline, but under federal rules, essentially the county is the most responsible party in the whole thing, and has significant leeway. The state can withhold funds, which gives them leverage, but the county really has the responsibility. And I find that this is a responsible proposal.
Thank you. Other comments, questions by commissioners?
Commissioner Laboda, I just wanted to quickly ask Bill or Tim, would this then be given a certificate of compliance, and could this be a potential issue for a future sale of the property? Over.
Commissioner Laboda, yes. Upon approval of the variance, the Design will be reviewed, and upon acceptance of that design and installation parameters, it will be given a certificate of compliance. The variance will be established with the property, so there shouldn't be any issues. The big concern would be implementation of a full-fledged pressurized system with treatment and that sort of thing, which would require a different certificate of compliance altogether. Over.
Anyone else?
Thank you, Bill. Over.
Anyone else? Comments, questions? Or I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Jerry, I move we approve the recommended proposal.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Henniker. Do we have a second?
Commissioner LeBoda, I will second that motion.
Thank you. So we have a motion and a second to approve this variance request. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll then call for the vote. Adam?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye. Over.
Judy?
Aye.
Charlie?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so that's 5 in favor. So that is passed. Next item on our agenda is, I'm going to kill this name here, Austin, is it Danicek? Danisich, all right. Austin Danisich, request for a variance from the shoreline setback to modify a deck on property adjacent to Loon Lake. Legal description is Lot 14, Block 1, Loon Lake Home Sites, plat. PID is 50-580-0114. Mr. Lane.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case 2020-11V. The applicant purchased his property in 2016. It includes 1.18 acres with approximately 245 feet of Loon Lake shoreline. Property is situated entirely within the Lakeshore Residential Zone District. Loon Lake is identified as a recreational development lake, and it includes 100-foot structural and septic treatment area setbacks. The property was purchased in 2016. At the time of purchase, a small 320-square-foot cabin and supporting 300-square-foot deck were in place. The cabin was constructed in 1971. Subsequent to his purchase, a 300-gallon privy vault was installed, bringing the property into septic compliance. The lot is part of the Loon Lake Home Sites, a 1990 Minnesota DNR plat, which converted state-leased lots into private ownership. The parcel exhibits moderate to steep slopes, that is 20 to 35%, and bluff features are present on the Danisich parcel. A review of LGU involvement on the parcel indicated an after-the-fact land use permit was issued in 2011 for unpermitted deck construction. Despite being within the 100-foot shoreline setback, Land Services did not engage the previous owner in the variance process for either shoreline or bluff resource setbacks. That said, Mr. Danisich is proposing to enclose part of that same deck, doing so without further encroachment on the shoreline setback. Specifically, his LUP application identifies an approximate 150-square-foot enclosure of the existing deck. Construction will merge with existing roof lines and will not otherwise expand the deck or cabin footprints. Given existing construction and a parcel not conducive to significant expansion, the Danisich request is reasonable and will not include further impact of the aesthetic landscape of the Loon Lake Home Sites plat. It should be noted, however, that during the Land Services site review, we did observe additional construction on the property that may warrant further permitting and/or variance attention, especially as applied to bluff resource setbacks. If approved, the following conditions may be applied to this variance. 1, all permitting requirements of Cook County must be adhered to prior to the initiation of construction. 2, the enclosure's drip line shall not expand beyond the existing deck strip line. 3, no construction closer to the shoreline shall be permitted. And 4, the property owner shall be responsible for compliance with the Cook County zoning ordinance for all construction activities on the parcel, and specifically those identified as part of this variance review. We sent out 15 notices. We received no comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lane. Is Mr. Danisick or someone to represent them available? Anyone here to address this parcel?
Yep.
Yes, sir. Go, please.
Austin Dennison.
Yes. If you have anything to add other than Bill's comments, go right ahead.
Nope.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to then ask for the public, I'll open this public hearing to the public. If anyone else is here, wants to comment on this request, now's your opportunity. Anyone who wishes to comment on this variance request? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn to commissioners. So I will just open it up, commissioners. Anyone has any comments regarding this property or questions, go ahead.
I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
I have one initial comment here before discussing the merits of it, and that is that in the narrative, it indicates that there was an observation of additional construction on the property that may merit additional response. I wish not to have that included on this unless that's specifically relevant to what we're talking about. I think that extraneous information that's potentially prejudicial, and I'd rather not see that there. Beyond that, I find everything, from my standpoint, seems to be in order, and I have no problems with it.
Thank you. Judy, do you have some other comments?
It may be here, but I'm not seeing it. How much does the deck encroach into the setback?
You should have received a site depiction. Actually, I'm looking at it now, and the closest approach of the deck to the water is 80 feet horizontal distance, and the construction is going to be behind that, so I'm assuming you're looking at probably the enclosure will be about 90 to 92 feet horizontal distance from the lake. Mr. Danisic can correct me, I'm just going off of pictometry images here.
I was there today and stood on the deck and looked at it. It is about 80 feet from the lake. It's about 80 feet above the lake. It falls right straight down there. And the addition is a farther, the deck, if you see the depiction there, extends out into that setback area, but the screened-in portion that they're planning is an extension to the side of the house. So the deck that extends out beyond the cabin would remain, and the screen porch would be out parallel to the side of the house. Other thoughts or questions?
So the 150 square feet is the portion that's in the setback, but it'll be on the side of the house. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah, that's right.
It'll be no closer to the lake.
That's right.
So that's, I was trying to figure out why you would worry about 150 feet. So, okay.
Yeah.
But everything else needs setbacks, and that's the only encroachment?
Yes.
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Anyone else? Comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, are we ready to make a motion?
This is Commissioner Truple. I make a motion to approve with the 4 conditions as stated.
Thank you. I have a motion from Adam. Do we have a second?
Bacher, second.
All right. Thank you, Judy. We got Judy as a second. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, I'll then call for a vote. Adam?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
I'm an aye myself. And Charlie?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. It's passed 5 votes for, so that is passed. We'll move on to our next item. Item D is Judith Harwood. Request for variances from the Shoreline side lot road set, excuse me, I'm going to start this again. Request for variances from the Shoreline side lot and road setbacks to modify a cabin and deck on property adjacent to Hungry Jack Lake. Legal description is Lot 2B, Hungry Jack Lake plat. Parcel ID is 52-961-6102. Will be just a minute here, Bill, for Bill to give us, run that down, but I did visit this property today as well. And this is at Hungry Jack. This is up in the, where I believe this is a lease lot. They have to, they have a lot of conditions they have to meet there from the government beyond us before they get to us. But we'll just hold on for just 1 minute while Mr. Bill comes back to read this, his narrative. That's okay. That's all right. Yeah, so we're doing Harvard.
Okay.
It's up to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case 2020-12V. This property is part of the Hungry Jack Lake Summer Home Group plat, a federal 23-lot development on the north shore of Hungry Jack Lake. Subject parcel includes 7.79 acres, but no Hungry Jack shoreline frontage. Property is situated within the Lakeshore Residential, or LSR, zone district. Hungry Jack Lake is categorized as a recreational development lake and includes 100-foot septic and structural setbacks from the shoreline. This property has established a Harwood family presence in Cook County for nearly 70 years. Cabin was built in 1951 and expanded in 1964. It includes 832 square feet of livable area established through a 16 by 52 foot structural perimeter. The dwelling has experienced some deterioration and, as may be suggested by photos, could be considered a warm season dwelling. The Harwood Parcel is one of 23 lots established by the federal government through the creation of the Hungry Jack Lake Summer Home Group, SHG, a leased lot configuration established in the 40s. As a leased lot, the federal government retains property ownership while the leases, specifically recreational residents, retain ownership of structures and infrastructure and are responsible for compliance with local jurisdiction, in this case, Cook County. The special use permit applied to SHG restricts property build-out to one dwelling, utility buildings, and a toilet. Improvements, while facilitated by local government, must nevertheless be approved by the USFS, that's the Forest Service, before implementation. As suggested by the applicant, this is not at all dissimilar to a PUD, and its committee reviews, information gathering, and deferential oversight for property owners. The Harwood proposal focuses on the inland portion of the cabin and includes construction of a 48 square foot bathroom addition and 182 square foot deck entryway. All of the proposed construction will occur within the LSR private road setback of 50 feet. A narrow sliver of new cabin occurs within the 100-foot shoreline setback. Variance relief from the side lot setback was also requested, but should not be relevant to proposed construction. From a strict LGU interpretation, the Harwood variances are necessary if for no other reason than to facilitate Forest Service approval of the structural modifications. Even without federal involvement, these variances should be considered harmless. Setback encroachments are minimal, and given the required federal shoreline buffer, Visibility from the water and adjacent properties are essentially non-existent. At both a first and second glance, the Harwood request is reasonable and will not impact either the residential or aesthetic landscape. The following conditions may be assigned to this variance. 1, the property shall conform to all requirements of Minnesota Rule 7080 and the Cook County Septic Ordinance. A septic inspection shall be necessary. 2, a land use permit shall be required prior to initiating cabin modifications. 3, construction shall not deviate from plans submitted as part of this request. The bathroom addition may not exceed 50 square feet, given 1-foot eaves. The deck may not exceed 182 square feet. And finally, the applicant is responsible for adherence to all USFS recreational residence requirements as identified in the special use permit GUN 44503. We sent out 10 letters of notification. I received 1 call from adjacent property owner Fern Peterson, who was curious but without opinion on the Harwood request.
Thank you, Bill. Is Ms. Harwood, are you available online? Is there anyone here representing the property?
I'm Richard Olson. I was the applicant and I represent the client.
Very good.
So if you have any questions for me, I'd be happy.
Yeah, do you have anything to add to the narrative other that Bill read before we open it up to the public?
No, I don't.
Okay.
He wrapped it up brilliantly.
Okay, very good. Then I'm going to turn to the public and ask if anyone in the audience tonight has a question or concern regarding this application. Now is your opportunity. So if you have anyone has comments regarding this application, now is your opportunity. Anyone that wishes to respond to the Judith Harwood request for variance? Okay, hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing portion of this meeting, and I will turn to commissioners and for your questions or comments. I'll begin again to myself, because I'll tell you, I was just there today and looked at the property, and it's much as Bill narrated. It's hard to find the cabins, and then once you find them, you can't see out of there where it is. The Forest Service requires pretty stringent requirements that they don't clear much away from anything. So they're really back in the brush. So I don't have any issues. Any other comments by commissioners? Any commissioners have any comments or questions? If not, we'd entertain a motion.
Commissioner Laboda, I would make a motion to approve with the conditions as written.
Thank you, Commissioner. We have a motion by Commissioner Laboda. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Judy. All right, we have a first and a second to approve this variance. Any further discussion before we vote? Any further discussion by the commissioners? Hearing none, then I'll call for a vote. Adam?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye.
Judy?
Aye.
I'll vote aye myself. Charlie?
Aye.
Good, thank you. We have 5 in favor and none against, so that variance has passed as well. Thank you.
May I make a comment? This is Richard Olson.
Okay.
That we clarify somehow in our processes how we deal with Forest Service properties.
That's what we just did, Richard.
Yeah, I'm not certain.
The issue, and Richard, and I'll be forthcoming, Richard and I have talked about this. The federal lease plats, if you will, have been around for decades, and the reference to local jurisdiction is very fleeting and not specific. Basically, lease owners, leaseholders are required to adhere to all federal guidance and guidelines with a cryptic reference over to other jurisdictions, and they include county, municipality, and that sort of thing. So that process, that inference is why we are kind of facilitating the variance, because even though the properties themselves are in federal jurisdiction, the next variance request is similar. The residences, the structures are privately owned. So that private ownership puts them over into the county jurisdiction, which is where the variance process and that sort of thing comes in. And again, this is a very infrequent request. The last one I did was probably, as a variance, was probably in 2008. And, whimsy being what it is, today we have 2 federal lease lot requests for variances. It's one of those, it is what it is. We're trying to facilitate the process, and with the local involvement, that's about all we can do.
Thanks, Bill. Okay, I don't know if that answered your question, but that's about all we can do. I understood that portion of it. I'm going to move on. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Richard.
We're going to move on to, we're on to our last item already. Wow. This is the Bob, what is that? McClowan. Bob McClowan, doing business as Bearskin Lodge, has a request for variances from the shoreline and side lot setback to reconstruct a fire-destroyed cabin on property adjacent to East Bearskin Lake. Legal description is Government Lots 15 and 17, Section 11, and Government Lot 3, Section 12, Township 64, North Range 1 West. PID 52-411-4400 and PID 52-412-1100. Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is case 2020-13V. The applicant entered into a special use permit agreement with the U.S. Forest Service on August 1st, 2007. Lodge operations, cabin rentals, and other internal resort infrastructure allowed under permit 5499-04 are all components of Bearskin Lodge. The leased area includes 20 acres with approximately 2,000 feet of East Bearskin Lake shoreline. East Bearskin Lake is categorized as a recreational development lake, and the parcel is entirely contained within the Resort Commercial Residential Zone District. Considerations: Bearskin Lodge is situated within 2 federal parcels on the north shore of East Bearskin Lake. The resort has been in existence since the 1920s and represents a rich tourism legacy in Cook County. The McClowan family has operated the resort since 2007. State and federal lease lots were and remain part of Cook County's shoreline landscape. With federal leases, the property remains under government jurisdiction, while property infrastructure becomes relegated to private ownership. While suggesting confused jurisdiction, the special use permit identifies local jurisdiction as the venue for structural modifications. And this alludes to the topic that Richard just asked about in the previous request. And to cite that kind of ambiguous language, this is the special permit use language. The holder, in exercising the privileges granted by this term permit, shall comply with all present and future federal laws and regulations and all present and future state, county, and municipal laws, ordinances, and regulations that apply to the area of operations covered by this permit, to the extent they do not conflict with federal law, policy, or regulations. The Forest Service assumes no responsibility for enforcing laws, regulations, ordinances, and the like that fall under the jurisdiction of other governmental entities. And that's from Rules, Laws, and Ordinances, excuse me, from Special Use Permit 5499-04, Terms and Conditions. Despite a pronounced connection to local government, there are minimal records in land services files for Bearskin Lodge. A review of the property's septic record suggests that the last septic inspection occurred in the 1990s. This lack of record suggests that projects warranting LGU involvement have not been undertaken, further suggesting that the resort infrastructure has changed little over the past several decades. Of course, a catastrophic fire can change all of that. On March 22nd, 2020, Cabin 6, the Larch Cabin, was completely destroyed by fire. Given the rapid approach of the summer tourism season, COVID-19 virus notwithstanding, Mr. McClowan contacted Land Services to determine a path forward to reconstruction. That path includes construction of a new cabin effectively on the same footprint as the lost cabin. At approximately 50 feet from the East Bearskin ordinary high water elevation, a replicate reconstruction of the destroyed cabin would be allowed under Article 9.02B of the Cook County zoning ordinance. However, the applicant has indicated an intent to modify the roof pitch and elevation, thereby warranting a variance from the side lot line and ordinary high water elevation setbacks. As presented, Bearskin Lodge intends to construct a 24 by 32 or 768 square foot, 3-bedroom cabin. The elevation of new construction will increase to 20 feet from the original 16 feet. Entry will occur from the west, suggesting a slight shoreline setback improvement. Given the link to Cook County's history and economy, this variance request is both reasonable and necessary. If approved, the following conditions may be applied to this variance request. 1, no construction may begin until all permits have been approved by Land Services. 2, the property shall comply with Minnesota Rule 7080 in the Cook County Septic Ordinance as directed by the Cook County Environmental Health Inspector. 3, the applicants must adhere to all federal land use requirements as described in the term special use permit. 4, no component of construction shall be closer than 52 feet from the East Bearskin Lake shoreline. 5, construction may not exceed 768 square feet, vertical wall perimeter dimensions, or 1,008 square feet drip line measurements assuming 2-foot eaves and gable ends. Structural elevation shall not exceed 22 feet. And finally, a gutter or catchment system or vegetation conducive to water uptake shall be included on new construction. We sent out 24 letters to adjoining property owners and received no comments regarding the McClowan request.
Thank you, Bill. Is Mr. McClowan or someone representing them available?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this is Bob McClone. I'm in attendance here.
Yeah, thank you. Do you have anything to add to Bill's narrative? Anything else you'd like to tell us?
No, I mean, it's presented really well. It's been great working with Bill on this. A quick question I have, though. On the new cabin we're proposing to build, the 24 by 32 cabin is 768 square feet, but on the plans I submitted, it had a 10 by 10 screen porch in addition. So is that like not part of that 768 feet, or should that be part of the discussion this evening?
I think it's a good time to discuss it.
And actually, Bob, that was my oversight on that. I didn't include that. That should have been part of the building plans. That was what was submitted. That should be part of the discussion. Since it is occurring off to the side, it doesn't further impact the shoreline setback, so I don't think that we would have any great issues with that.
Yes, I'm looking at the aerial photo of the property now showing the old cabin, which the new cabin would probably look the same from above, huh? And the screen porch would go on, if I'm standing at the lake looking at your cabin, is it going to be on the left side or the right side?
It's going to be on the right side. It's going to be on the cabin faces south. It's going to be on the east side.
Right, okay, I can.
Formerly, yeah.
Yeah, I can see this, see it plainly.
Right.
Very good. Yeah, I visited the site today, and it makes sense. Okay, do you have anything else you'd like to add before I open it up to the public?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, now, then I will open this hearing to the public for any comment on this variance request. If anyone has any comments or concerns regarding this request, now is your opportunity.
Yeah, this is John Schlote with Cross River Lodge.
Yes.
I'm also a lodge owner, a resorter, just up the trail from Bob, and I'd like to speak in support of this matter. I can say that Bob and Sue are really strong and thoughtful members of this Gunfront Trail community, and they sort of got hit with a double whammy this year with a cabin burning down and then the COVID virus affecting all resorters and everybody in Cook County. And I think that Bob is a straight-up good guy, and he's going to follow the plans, and his request is quite reasonable with just a few changes on the very same footprint. And I would encourage passage of this variance as soon as possible so he can get that cabin up and running again. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Anyone else from the public that wishes to comment on this request? Anyone else that wishes to comment on this request, this variance request, now is your opportunity. Hearing none, I'm going to then close the public portion of this meeting and again turn to our commissioners for any comments or questions they may have. Go ahead, commissioners. Well, I'll say that I was there today and did visit this property today as well, and it's very much as Bill described. As I had never really spent any time at that resort, but it took me a while walking around to find the burned cabin site. They're hidden in the woods so well, you can't see one from the other. So it is a good request as far as I'm concerned, a very reasonable request as well. Any other comments from the commissioners? If not, yep.
I'm not reviewed quite a bit, and I find an eminently reasonable proposal, including with the additional attachment that was missing. I would certainly support this.
Very good, thank you. Do we have a size of this screen porch?
I believe you said 10 by 10.
Was that a 10 by 10 screen porch, Mr. McClellan?
Yep, that's right.
10 by 10, all right, so, and it's, okay, very good, just so we get that in the record. Any other questions or comments by the commissioners? Do we have a motion?
This is Jerry. I would move that we approve it with the addition that was missing and all the requirements.
Right. And can I just add to that, Jerry, what is missing is a 10 by 10 screen porch that would be attached to the east side of the cabin. Would that be a part of your motion?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have a second to that motion?
Commissioner Laboda, I would second that motion.
Thank you, Charlie. Any further discussion from commissioners regarding this motion? Okay, hearing none, I will call for a vote. Adam?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye. Over.
Judy?
Aye.
And I'll be an aye myself. And Charlie?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. We have 5 ayes, so that variance request is passed. And that is our last item for this evening, so I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Nobody wants to go home.
I do.
Commissioner Laboda, I motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'll second it.
Seconded by, who was that? Jerry?
Jerry.
Jerry second. All right. We got a motion and a second. Adam?
Aye.
Jerry?
Aye. Over.
Judy?
Aye.
And Charlie?
Aye.
And I'm aye as well. We are adjourned, folks. I hope maybe I'll see you next month. That's my plan. I'd rather. You know, I hate to say, I miss you folks. It's kind of lonely sitting there. Have a good evening. We'll see you next month.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you all.
Bye.
What do we do with this? Something? End call. End call?
I would assume,
It says
yeah.
end call right there, it says. Yeah, it says, do you want to make a new call? Nope, we're done.
So, yeah, you know, that 10 by 10 screen porch, I send the narrative to these guys. I wish they'd tell me that, because, you know,
Oh, yeah,
I'm
he
freaking
sees it.
spinning plates.
Yeah, I understand that shit. It's no,
Oh, my God.
no big deal. That's simple enough.
And he's a good guy and everything. It's just like, you know, it puts
Yeah.
me on the spot of like,
Yeah, no, that's what the hell. We're through.
it's frustrating. And then, you know.
Now, Bill, you gotta, maybe, you go home and drink a little.